The Free City of Danzig, modern Gdansk in Poland, was, from 1920 till 1939, a sort of quasi-country, which most of its people, and both of its neighbours, didn't want to see exist. Until the end of World War I and the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, Danzig was part of Germany, but in prior centuries it had belonged to Poland, and succeeding regimes in both Warsaw and Berlin agreed that the Free City was a bad idea, and that the Danzig situation should be put to bed. So then, who did want to see an independent Danzig, and how did Poland and Germany each try to win control of the city-state between the world wars? What was the Free City of Danzig, and why was it made free? Well, interwar Danzig was actually the second free city, after one in the Napoleonic era, and the lands around Gdansk are important to the national stories of both Germany and Poland. Founded by a Polish king 1,000 years or so ago, Danzig was a key centre of Baltic trade for centuries. Conquered several times, from the late Middle Ages on, it was mostly inhabited by German speakers, who came both as traders and conquerors. But it was variously subject to Polish dukes, the Teutonic Order of Knights, and eventually the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. When Poland was wiped off the map at the end of the 18th century, Danzig went to the Kingdom of Prussia, and in 1870 the Prussians created the German Empire, within which the city remained until the fall of the Kaiser. In the aftermath of World War I, Central and Eastern Europe were still on fire. 4 empires had near-simultaneously collapsed, and nationalities from the Balkans to Finland were in different stages of achieving independence. Out of Austria, Germany, and Russia, Poland had re-emerged as a state under the leadership of Marshal Józef Pilsudski. In an exhausted Germany, a social democratic revolution toppled Kaiser Wilhelm II at the end of 1918, and the Weimar Republic accepted the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, humiliatingly imposed on the Germans the next year by the Entente. It should come as no surprise that World War I's victors were instrumental in establishing the Free City of Danzig. The 4 Entente Powers, Britain, France, Italy, and the USA, had their own priorities at the Paris Peace Conference, and Danzig reflected that. Competing questions of national self-determination and the economic viability of new states, plus a general desire to punish the Germans, hung over the talks in 1919. France would have seen Danzig go to Poland, along with the rest of the so-called Polish Corridor, formerly German lands that gave the Poles access to the sea. It was clear that without a major export and import hub, the Polish economy would be hamstrung, and it would be seriously reliant on German goodwill, which was near non-existent if the city was retained by the Weimar Republic. One of US President Woodrow Wilson's 14 points for peace pledged a port somewhere to Poland. On the other hand, Danzig had a German population, and the Entente had committed themselves to supporting self-determination for nationalities. Ceding Danzig to Poland would have been hypocritical, but much more importantly, even 20 years before World War II, there was potential danger in humiliating Germany too much, with Britain in particular urging restraint. Separating Danzig from the Weimar Republic and Poland, then, was a happy compromise for the French and British. It was not well received in Warsaw, probably the second least appreciated thing after Soviet invaders, and along with the rest of their Versailles losses, it caused outrage in Germany. The Free City's territory consisted of Danzig itself, as small as Sopot, and the surrounding countryside. It had a population of about 400,000 people in the 1920s, of whom very roughly 6% were Poles, though that would rise to 10 to 15% before 1939. Bilingualism was common among Poles across former Imperial German lands, which obscures exact figures. Additionally, the overwhelmingly Catholic Polish community often aligned politically with minority Catholic Germans. Well, until the Danzig Nazi Party consolidated power and began prepping the city-state for a takeover. Versailles stipulated that Danzig would be self-governing, but it also gave Poland special rights within Danzig's borders, an arrangement that was overseen by the League of Nations. Residents lost their German citizenship, so Danzig had its own passports, stamps, and money. Per their constitution, Danzigers elected an assembly and an executive senate to govern them, while the board of the city harbour was split evenly between Polish and Danziger members, though they had no authority to hinder Polish access to the port. Danzig's main railways were also controlled by Poland. The Free City was subject to Polish customs and border authority, and Warsaw represented it internationally. Thus, the Danzig government was banned from having armed forces. It had police, but couldn't let actual German troops be stationed inside its territory. The Poles maintained a garrisoned and fortified supply depot on the Westerplatte Peninsula. Having miraculously defeated the Red Army in 1921, Poland was perennially concerned for its security, stuck between two irredentist powers. Germans resented their territorial losses to the supposedly inferior Poles. Each country tried to win influence over the city-state. Notably, Danziger National Socialists followed their parent party into power in June 1933, although unlike in Germany proper, the Danzig Nazis failed to create an airtight dictatorship. Poland pushed the limits of its treaty rights, sending a warship into Danzig in 1932, and then additional soldiers in response to Hitler becoming Chancellor. To avoid economic blackmail, they had built up the border port of Gdynia, which came to carry more Polish trade than Danzig. As Hitler's Germany began to undo Versailles by rearming, and then started to eat countries, the injustice of Danziger Germans living outside of the Reich was a focal point in demands made of Poland before World War II. When the Germans finally invaded in September 1939, the Danziger authorities happily assisted in their persecution of Poles and with the logistics of annexing the city. Inadvertently, they also helped facilitate German Danzig's doom. Today, Gdansk is a Polish city in every sense. Its German population fled, or else were expelled after the war, and the region was resettled by Poles in the 1950s. A place which remains German is Bavaria, but in 1870, the Bavarian kingdom had real reservations about joining the German Empire. In the video to the left, find out how Prussia managed to include it by cornering a king who lived in fairyland. And as always, I've been James, and thanks for watching Look Back History.